can't kill me. I'm part of you now.
As Ramsay bled out in the dark, he was wrong about almost everything he ever believed. But not this. Those few words were the truest thing he ever spoke. Beneath the threat sits a quiet horror, that the dead can keep living inside the people they broke. This is the single moment Ramsay Bolton stopped lying, and the only gift he ever meant to leave behind. To calculate the atmospheric pressure of this Winterfell kennel, we must understand what each of these two people lost to end up standing here. Sansa Stark spent months as this man's wife and prisoner, locked inside the same castle where she was born. He hunted her. He starved her. He turned her own home into the worst place on earth. Ramsay ruled the North through fear, and he believed fear was a thing that never wore off. Now the battle is over. Jon took the field. The Bolton banners are down in the mud. Ramsay sits tied to a chair in the cold, his face split open, while his own hounds shift behind iron in their pens. Sansa wants more than his death. She wants proof that the part of her he poisoned can be cut out and burned. He wants her to walk away, knowing it never can. Both of them are fighting over the same thing now. Not the castle, but who gets to keep the damage.
Sansa.
He says her name like an old friend. Calm. Almost warm. Ramsay is strapped to a chair with his skull half caved in, and still he greets her as though she wandered into his hall by choice. The warmth is the weapon. A man who is truly finished begs, or he rages. Ramsay does neither. He plays the host. By acting like nothing has changed, he is trying to drag Sansa back into the old shape of their marriage, the one where he set every rule and she swallowed it whole. Each soft word is a small claim staked on her mind. He is not making conversation. He is testing whether his ownership of her still holds, now that everything else has been taken from him.
Is this where I'll be staying now?
He asks about his room while bound to a chair in a cell he will die in tonight. He knows that. The question was never about the room. It is bait. He is checking whether he can still make her answer him, still reach in and pull a reaction out of her like a string he has tugged 100 times before. What he is reaching for has a name, and it is the most dangerous thing an abuser leaves behind. Introjection. The mind quietly swallowing another person's voice until it starts to sound like your own thought. Months of his cruelty trained her body to flinch at the sound of him, to brace before he even raised a hand. Now that same voice is feeling around in the dark for the old laver, hoping the wiring still works. Sansa gives him almost nothing back. No fear, no plea, no flicker. And that flat silence is the first crack in his certainty. The string he pulled for so long has been cut, and he can feel the slack in his fingers.
Our time together is about to come.
One word first, no. Then a flat, almost bored sentence about his own death. She does not shout it, she does not savor it yet. Sansa answers him the exact way he once answered her, stripped of feeling, certain, fully in control of the room. She did not learn that tone in a book. She learned the grammar of power from the man who used it on her every day, and now she is speaking his language back into his face. The student is standing over the teacher, and the teacher can feel the floor tilting under the chair he is tied to. For months, the current ran one direction only. He hurt, she absorbed. A bond built that way does not snap clean the moment the cell door opens. Trauma bonding. The twisted attachment that forms when fear and relief keep coming from the same hand, over and over, until the victim's whole world quietly orbits the abuser. Ramsay is betting his last breath on that orbit. He believes a piece of Sansa is still tied to him, still bent around his fist, and that no execution can straighten it back out. The unbearable part is how right he is. He sees the proof in how perfectly she imitates him.
Your words will disappear. Your house will disappear. Your name will disappear.
Watch what she chooses to destroy. Not his body. The hounds will see to that soon enough. She goes after his words, his house, his name. Sansa understands something most people in this brutal world never figure out. A man like Ramsay does not really fear pain. Pain was his favorite toy. He fears erasure. He spent his entire life clawing for a name that was handed to him late and grudgingly, the Bolton name he was not born holding, the legitimacy he tortured and murdered to keep. So she drives the blade straight into the wound underneath all the cruelty, the bastard boy who was terrified of being nobody. She promises him that nobody is exactly what he will become. No songs, no grave anyone visits, no memory at all. This is his own cruelty turned around and pointed back at the source. And it lands. You can watch the smile thin out on his ruined face. For the first time in the whole scene, Ramsay is the one being read instead of the one doing the reading. But there is a problem buried inside her victory, and it is going to follow her out of this room for years. Even as she wins, his voice has already finished moving in. Intrusive cognition, unwanted thoughts that show up on their own, uninvited, replaying a moment or a voice you never agreed to carry. Seasons after this night, Sansa trusts almost no one. She studies every ally for the hidden knife. She reads cruelty in a face before it ever shows itself. The world calls it wisdom, and some of it truly is. She survived where softer people died, but some of it is Ramsay, still whispering from a grave, still teaching her that warmth is only ever a trap and kindness is the bait on a hook. Watch her later, the way she eyes Daenerys in Winterfell, the way she quietly works against her own family's allies, the way she trusts the man who sold her to Ramsay in the first place over the brother who saved her. She tells Jon that she learned a great deal from Ramsay, and she says it like a confession, not a brag. He told her she could never be free of him. Her own caution proves him a little bit right every single day she stays alive.
My hounds will never harm me.
Now the whole scene turns under his feet. Ramsay finally hears the hounds growling behind him and grabs for the one certainty he has left in the world. They are his. He raised them from pups. He owns them, body and bone. His confidence is total, and it is completely hollow. Magical thinking. The belief that wanting something badly enough, or owning it long enough, can bend reality to obey your will. Ramsay built his entire self on control. Over people, over animals, over the exact moment pain begins and ends. He literally cannot picture a world where the things he owns stop doing what he says, because being the owner is the only identity he has ever had. Strip that away, and there is nothing left underneath, just the frightened boy who needed a name. So even now, bleeding and cornered and out of options, he assumes a loyalty he has done absolutely nothing to earn. He confused obedience with love his entire life, and a man who never learned the difference cannot tell, even at the end, that his dogs were never loyal at all. The man who weaponized hunger against other people forgot one simple fact about hunger. It answers to no master. It only answers to itself.
Haven't fed them in 7 days, you said it yourself.
She does not argue with his belief. She corrects his facts, quiet, patient, almost gentle. She uses his own boast against him, the same way she just used his own cruelty against him, pulling the confession out of a drawer he handed her himself and laying it back on the table when it costs him everything. Sansa has learned the single most useful truth about Ramsay. A man this proud always tells you exactly who he is, sooner or later, and a careful listener only has to remember it. He bragged about starving his dogs to make them vicious. She simply kept the receipt.
They're loyal beasts.
They were. Now they're starving.
2 words end him long before the teeth do. They were. Past tense. Sansa kills his certainty first, then steps calmly aside and lets the hunger handle the rest. Loyalty, she tells him without ever raising her voice, is not a thing you own forever. It is fed, or it turns on you. He starved the loyalty out of his own creatures one day at a time and never once noticed, because he always mistook fear for love and ownership for devotion. Everything he ever believed about power dies inside that small, flat correction. The hounds come for him slowly at first, then all at once. He raised these animals to be weapons, and a weapon feels nothing for the hand that bleeds. He taught them only one lesson in their whole lives, that meat is the only mercy this world offers, and tonight he is the only meat left in the room. The cruelty he perfected over years turns and walks toward him on 4 legs, exactly as patient as he trained it to be.
Stop! Stop! Stop!
The man who never once stopped for another person screaming spends his final breath begging the whole world to stop for his. Sansa does not look away. She does not gloat or weep or run. She watches, and somewhere in the watching, a small, cold smile begins to pull at the corner of her mouth. The horror of that smile is the entire reason this scene matters. He did not just lose to her. He left something of himself behind in the face of the woman watching him die. The quiet capacity to feel satisfaction at another human being's agony. That smile did not exist on the girl who arrived at Winterfell in chains. He grew it there, the way a gardener grows something in poisoned soil. She walks out into the snow carrying it with her, and she will carry it for the rest of her life. He was part of her now, and he made absolutely sure she felt it on the way out the door. The cruelest thing he ever did was not the torture. It was making her capable of his own coldness and then dying before she could give it back. But here is what the show never told you. In George R.R. Martin's books, this confrontation has never happened. Ramsay is still alive on the page, still squatting inside Winterfell, and Sansa was never married to him at all. That nightmare was handed to a completely different girl, a childhood friend forced to pose as Sansa's long-lost sister, while the real Sansa plays a longer and colder game far to the south in the Vale, learning manipulation directly at the elbow of Littlefinger, a master of it. That single change rewires the entire meaning of her hardness. On the page, her growing coldness is strategy, chosen and studied like a craft. On screen, it is scar tissue, earned in a marriage bed turned into a torture cell. The clean closure you feel as the hounds close in is a closure Martin has never once granted his readers in 5 long books. And that is exactly why the show's version cuts you in 2 directions at the same time. You cheer, and then you notice you are cheering, and the cheer turns cold in your mouth. Walking out of an abuser's house ends their hands on your body. It does almost nothing about their voice in your head. Retributive closure. The quiet, false promise that punishing the person who hurt you will finally erase what they actually did. Sansa gets the most complete revenge a human being could possibly ask for. She watches him die screaming, by his own design, at the teeth of his own pride. And still she carries him into every room she enters for years afterward. Real survivors rebuild trust one slow inch at a time. They flinch at a familiar tone of voice. They read danger in places where calmer people see nothing at all, not because anything in them is broken, but because the mind learned one lesson far too well and refuses to unlearn it on command. The day the control ends and the day the peace begins are almost never the same day. Sometimes whole years sit between them, so here is the question worth sitting with after the screen goes dark. Ramsay swore to Sansa that she could never truly be free of him, and then she spent years proving him right by trusting almost no one who came after. Did she win in that kennel, or did he? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'll see you in the next.